Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for a second time today. This is our regularly scheduled Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. After we had our other talk this morning, which is our once monthly that we hold on the third Sunday of every month. So, if you're watching here twice, wow, thank you so much for your dedication. And yeah, we are going to get pretty much right into it, aside from mentioning a quick, hey, if you like our stuff, you can let us know with a thumbs up. You can leave us a good comment with a thought or a question, and we'll respond when we can. And ideally, we would love if you would subscribe so you can keep in touch with us and keep an eye on what we're up to from week to week. And we get to make sure that you receive updates about what we're up to. So, with no further ado, our topic of the evening is a continuation of our exploration of, where Sufi tradition and philosophy meets fourth wave philosophy, the philosophy of Gurdjieff. And we started talking about one of the four levels of the Ruh last week, Jismani Ruh. And this week we'll be talking about the next level.
Yeah.
I don't know if levels is the right word.
Levels is not the right word.
Yeah, I don't think so either. What would be a better word, do you think?
Souls. Gurdjieff uses body when he talks about it. And body is not the right word. Part of the problem here is that we are dealing with
don't worry, I'll take care of those.
Yeah. Okay. We're dealing with 19th century and 18th century cosmology that hasn't kept up with the times. And so the idea was that you were like a Russian doll. You had all of these other bodies inside of you, and you were developing each of them, and each out of more refined material. But that's not the case. We look around and we don't see those bodies in us. We don't see a lot of the things that were used as the model. The model needs to be updated. The reality is still the same, but the model needs to be updated. And so souls right now is probably a better word than bodies.
Yeah, and I guess my thought was they're not necessarily levels of, in the sense of one being better than the next.
Yeah. Yeah, Roger, no worries. We remember what you look like, and we're delighted to have you here. It's as always quite a treat. And
yes. Very happy to be here, Bushtan. Sorry we lost contact for some time.
You were busy traveling around the world, so
yes.
That's no worries.
And happy birthday, by the way.
Yes, happy birthday.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Okay. So now last week we talked about Jismani Ruh, which is the physical soul. And Gurdjieff called it the physical body or the carnal body. And that, as we mentioned, contains the elements that make what Gurdjieff called man 1, 2, and 3. It's all in that. The next soul, Seyreni Ruh, it's an interesting word. I've been digging around trying to find the meanings of it, talking with friends who are native speakers of Arabic and Farsi and Turkish, and it all comes from the same Arabic root. And one thing I noticed in looking at ways to translate it, it is related to the idea of Syria for some reason, but it's not the Syrian soul. In Arabic, it has the sense and quality of moving or traveling. And it's pretty much the same in Farsi. In Turkish, it means more like seeing or looking. But the moving soul, the traveling soul, oh, I just realized I didn't have my gigantic, boom, there we go. It has the sense of movement to it. This is what Gurdjieff referred to as the Kejjan body. And another term for that is the astral body. So
you probably wouldn't catch us using that term too frequently.
No, you're not going to hear us using that term. One of the things that seems to be implicit in understanding this is that it is energetic in nature, or has to do with physical energy, has to do with a sort of aliveness in the same sense that the Chinese talk about qi circulating through the body. I think that concept relates to this soul, and it gives you this idea of movement. So this is the energy that moves through the body every day, and they say it circulates along a particular path. I don't know about that one way or the other, but it definitely moves through the body, and sometimes you have more of it and sometimes you have less. Another name for it is the magnetic center. And just lost somebody there.
It was C.
Yeah, I know she has.
Okay, we will make sure she can come back if she'd like to.
Yeah. Hopefully her internet problems have been sort of sorted out. With the Jismani Ruh, you get that as a default. It's a standard issue when you are born. What you do with it is up to you, but you have it. With the Seyreni Ruh, it exists in potential, but it's something that you have to cultivate. And that always seems weird to me when I first encountered it, the idea of I somehow have to do something to have this. And trying to think of a good analogy for it. When you are alive, when you are born, you breathe. And you get to breathe for your whole life. Right? There's no doubt about that. When you're alive, you get to breathe. To breathe well requires intention. So everybody can breathe. Everybody takes in air, absorbs the oxygen, lets off carbon dioxide, does all of that stuff without having to do anything to earn breathing. But to breathe well is an art that requires consciousness and intention, because there are efficient ways to breathe and there are inefficient ways to breathe, and you have to move from the second to the first. That's a little bit like the analogy of this soul concept. And if I seem to be struggling with explaining this, I am, because there's not a lot of good words that I can find for it. But the idea that you have to work in particular ways to form this consciously for it to work well. And if you don't, you have problems with the next two souls. So what does this look like? What does it look like to work on forming the magnetic soul? Forming the moving soul? It looks like moving your consciousness and awareness through the world. So when I'm sorting out my my physical soul, it is just a matter of aligning the moving center, the emotional center, and the intellectual center, and making sure that they're all using the energies that they're supposed to and not stealing from each other. Simple task. When I start on the Seyreni rule, it becomes a matter of holding awake energy and not blowing it off. Does that make sense? The idea of, here I am and I'm awake, and I can hold this for a little while, and then I get distracted. When I'm distracted, I am no longer creating the friction necessary to generate the energy for this soul. So this means you stay awake through the responses of your body, first of all. Something happens, my first soul goes, oh, I should be upset about this. And I rather than just moving into the pattern of upsetness, I stay awake to that. I am aware of I'm aware of the experience of this pattern coming up in me without falling prey to it. So there's the idea that most of the time, consciousness is attached to its objects, right? This is fairly standard in a lot of places. Consciousness is attached to its objects, not just attached to, but identified with. So a pattern of upset comes in and I say, I am upset. I create the is of identity of upsetness as an essence. When the truth of the matter is that upsetness is moving through me and I can observe it. If I can make that detachment, then the seer is a good term for this. The seer is that which is you when you separate yourself from all of the objects that you identify with. And one does that by stilling the mind. When when in the course of the day, the mind wants to chatter, your
It sure
job,
does.
yeah, your job is to tell it, shh. Or if it can't shush for some reason, if there's some reason that it needs to chatter, you can observe that chatter without identifying with that chatter. So I'm walking down the street, minding my own business, and I walk past a junkyard, and a humongous pit bull throws itself against the fence on the other side and starts, right? I actually had this happen to me.
Sounds like our neighborhood.
Well, the pit bulls aren't as. This was why I had gone to a doctor's appointment and was walking back in a neighborhood that I wasn't familiar with.
Mm.
And it startled me. My body took over. You know, I literally jumped about 3 feet back. I had my cane because I always walk with my cane, and it came up into port arms, ready to fight off whatever it was, before I had any chance to consciously respond to it. But the moment nothing attacked me, I was able to go, oh, that was an interesting response. And I'm looking at the dog, and the dog is literally drooling and slavering on the other side of this fence, but it's a good fence, so it's not going to get at me. And I'm able to observe the fear response of my body, observe the emotional upset and anger that came up that somebody would train a dog to behave in this way. And just see them as things that were presented to me that didn't have anything to do with me. Does that make sense? Help me out here, folks. Does it make sense?
Jonathan,
Because
what are
if
your
it doesn't,
thoughts?
I need to come up with another metaphor.
Maybe I can. I'd like to give a definition of what I understand to be the magnetic center.
Yeah, please
and
do.
I'm interested to know if it fits in with the soul as you are presenting it. I've got here the magnetic center. It's a group of eyes or personas within me that have a common intention, a common life intention. And that the intention is for growth of essence and developing life understanding.
Okay. That's a good start. The only thing that I would add to that is that that group of personas you understand are not you. So there is you. It's like those personas are coats in a closet. And as necessary, you can take one out and put it on, but you realize that you are not the coat. And you can trade it out for another coat in a different situation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So my question then is, you're saying that the Ruhani al Seyrani, the goal is to develop conscious presence.
Yes.
But is that the only intention or purpose of this soul, or does it go beyond that? Or
it does go beyond that, because that becomes the interface between the higher and the lower. The next two souls, which Gurdjieff would call the higher intellectual center and the higher emotional center, do not develop unconsciously. And you need this as an interface for the development of your next two souls, which would be the Sultani Ruh and the Ruhani Ruh. And without them, you can theoretically develop your Sultani Ruh without a magnetic center, without a moving soul, but it will not crystallize correctly, is what they say. It will not develop correctly. It will become mutated.
Mutated.
You know,
Am I remembering? Sorry, go ahead.
No, after you.
I was going to say, am I remembering correctly that, when you get ahead of yourself, sometimes you have to start over if you really want to go back and do things well?
If you end up doing that and you want to progress any further, you have to break down that soul, break down the higher center and rebuild it after building a magnetic soul. It's really rather painful.
Yeah. So tell us about this mutatedness.
Extra eyeballs, scales, perhaps. I'm sure there are tentacles involved.
Nice.
Yeah, think of, we see this in teachers who have an opening and a revelation and start teaching from that, but have not done the work to get to that point and to make that point stable. And it often produces some weird side effects. I don't want to name any names of anybody who is still alive, but you can see it in the world. And it's obvious with a lot of these people that, well, I can talk about one person who nobody ever hears about him anymore, which is Werner Erhard, who created the Erhard Seminars training and some other program, back in the 60s and early 70s. And he had a real opening, an enlightenment and awakening experience, but he did not have this intermediate step. And rather than doing the necessary work on himself, he just ran with it, and it created a toxic environment. Another good example would have been Leonard Orr, who was a contemporary of Werner's and who I actually knew a lot better than I knew Werner. He had a profound opening that helped him create the entire rebirthing movement. But he didn't deal with his shit. So here you have this kernel of awakeness sitting on a pile of manure. And it manifested in him as a fear of death. But because he could have this awakening, it wasn't like a regular fear of death. He was working towards immortality. He had this solid belief that he was going to live forever. And he didn't. It didn't work out because that's not the game that we're involved in. And if he had only read his Yoga Sutras, he would realize that the last of the things that we have to deal with is the fear of the body's death, the attachment to life. And as the sutras say, even The greatly awakened have problems with this one. And so that's the kind of thing that happens when you skip this phase and move forward. First of all, you get stuck there. You can't go any further. And second of all, the undealt with stuff is still there and will come back and bite you.
And if you're in a position of power, then you hurt others with it too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're
and
probably
in
gonna...
some ways for instance, in Leonard's situation, he didn't do a lot of the things that a lot of the gurus did, but he led his students into the same trap that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And they all focused there. They all got stuck there. They all got their consciousness focused on these ideas and identified with them.
So he projected his fear onto others, and then they got trapped.
Yeah, they went with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's something like this analogy? Like, to be a good rock climber, you need to be incredibly courageous, and you need to have great set of skills.
And maybe be able to flap your arms fast enough to fly. Yeah.
So it could be like someone who's incredibly courageous, but hasn't built his skill set step by step. And they can do amazing things. And then they say, come with me, we'll climb this enormous mountain together. And this, simply by courage, they can achieve great things. But at some point, they're going to be stopped by a lack of skills. And they might find themselves, they're 3/4 of the way up the mountain when that happens, and they're screwed.
It's very much like that. Yeah, that actually reminds me of years and years and years ago, back in the early 1980s, I was teaching a course in Ericksonian hypnosis. And this dude came into the course, and he had just finished a course with Tony Robbins, who was a big NLP guru at the time. And this guy had incredible confidence that he could do everything with absolutely no skill to do it. But he totally believed in himself. He totally believed that he could be a great hypnotist, that he was a great hypnotist, that he could, anything that I told him that I wanted him to do, he thought he could do it. And he was wrong. And it was amazing to watch somebody with 100% confidence and 0% competence. And that's what it's like when you don't develop this soul and you move onward. You have the confidence, you have the experience of awakeness, but you don't have the foundation upon which you can move from it in the world. So
good metaphor, Jonathan.
Yeah, that was very, very helpful in trying to figure out how to explain this. So, how do you work on your moving soul? Important question. The answer, of course, is you start with self-observation. You actually start with breath.
Of course.
Everything starts with breath. Yeah, I was going, oh, everybody knows that, but I should say it anyway. Mm-hmm. You start with your breath. You learn to breathe consciously. As the precepts say, hosh dardam, awareness of breath, breathe consciously. That is your cue and your anchor to be able to move into a state that you can work on your moving soul. When you are in this state, you start with self-observation, and you describe to yourself your experience. You observe yourself and your interactions with the world, and you describe it in a particular way. You describe it first person. I am experiencing this. Not I am this, not is of identity, but I am experiencing this. You describe it without presupposition, or as presupposition free as possible. I don't know that we can actually describe anything completely without presupposition. So, I am experiencing a sense of mild tension in my back. I call this tension because I can feel certain muscular contractions. When I move in a certain way, that tension begins to release. And I notice there's a sense of what appears to be energy moving through my body when I release that tension. As I am doing that, I can hear what sounds to me like a dog barking. And it is barking on the left side of my auditory field and behind me. I am looking at a computer screen, and it has an image on it that appears to be me. I do not describe what's on the other side of this computer screen because I can't see it. And that's one of the differences. I do not describe anything that I cannot directly experience, and only what I can experience. The house appears to be yellow on this side. I don't comment on what's on the other side of the house. I do not make those assumptions. So you are working to be as assumption-free as possible. I bracket what I am describing, which means I'm working with it slightly out of time. I can take the memory of something that happened and examine it in this way. I can observe myself interacting with the memory, which is not in real time. It's in memory time, but you can do that with this. That's the first step, to be able to learn to describe the world in a way that does not force you to identify with the world that you are describing. And yet, you get to have full sensory experience of the world. Second step, self-remembering. Self-remembering is the process of being aware of this process, being aware of the I that can do the observation. To find your remembrance, I like the little trick, and I've mentioned this, I don't know how many times, but I'm going to do it again because it always works. The question, are you awake? Check inside and see. Are you awake, or are you in a dream? And the answer that you're going to come up with is, yes, you're awake. The moment that you touch that answer, you experience awakeness. You experience exactly what we are working towards holding as a state on a regular basis. If you did nothing else but ask yourself that question over and over again consciously, because you can turn it into a rote exercise. Am I awake? Am I awake? And you don't even listen to it. But when you actually ask yourself the question and check, am I awake or am I asleep? Yeah, I'm awake. That moment is awakeness. And you grab hold of it and hold on to it for a while. How long can you hold that sense of being awake? At first, whole seconds. And then you'll get distracted again. The practice of self-remembering is to bring yourself back into that state of awareness over and over again, which is why it's called remembering. It's not self-membering, it's remembering. Do it again. Remember. Ah, yes. Makes sense? The third part of developing a soul is self-witnessing, which is remembering yourself while experiencing the world, holding both of those states at the same time. The state of being in the world and perceiving everything, while at the same time holding yourself to that awake state. Simplest thing in the world, only takes 20 years of practice to get it down. It actually takes a lot less than that if you apply yourself assiduously to it. Is that a word, assiduous?
It's a word. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the process through which you develop the moving soul. The other part of the process is actually moving. There are physical exercises that one can do that help circulate the body's energy. If you want to know what some of them are, send me a private message or leave a comment and ask a question or email us or anything like that. And we can figure out what will be useful to you. So, questions?
I just want to say welcome to Anna, and I would love to invite Anna to ask or, mention anything might have on their mind. Sorry.
See, I think we're friends on Facebook, so just drop me a message and we will talk at length about it.
Cool. All right, so Hind, how are you doing with this? There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just, I was wondering, when at first there is self-observation,
Mm-hmm.
then self-remembering,
Mm-hmm.
and self-witnessing.
Yes.
And when um, when I am observing and then witnessing, it refers to a higher soul, the I am that does um
I think the
don't know
answer to your question is yes. I don't know if higher is the right word, but more developed.
Yeah, that was something I was struggling to convey earlier, and more developed, because we're talking about building the next soul on top of the foundation of the one that comes before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So first we have to be in our bodies, right? And that's the body soul. Taking advantage of, you know, the muscles, the bones, all of these physical components that ground us in this reality. And then the next level of that is developing this, you know, the moving soul, which utilizes the body to experience this reality. Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
And we cannot really do the moving soul / magnetic center development without having a body in the first place.
No, if you don't have a body, none of this is relevant.
Yeah. So you start there. We all get that for free, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we build this one. And then on that foundation, we move on to the one that we'll be talking about next week.
Yep. Yeah, which Gurdjieff referred to as the higher emotional center.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good. I'm glad that was just a little bit helpful. C, do you have any questions or thoughts?
I don't at this time.
Perfectly fine. Oh, yes. Anna says, my internet connection is very poor. Did you get my last message? Unfortunately, not. I apologize. It may work now, though, if you want to give it another try. Rajan, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, because Rajan is wise and knows much about this stuff. So we can always draw upon his knowledge to make things less obtuse.
Could you, Mushtaq, talk a little bit about the false magnetic center where people go behind miracles and things like that? Could you talk a little bit about that? Where there is a magnetic center developed, but it's not a proper magnetic center.
Yeah, that's the one that you have to decrystallize if you want to evolve yourself. Okay. Yeah, that center tends to happen when someone has a profound experience, an experience of truth, an experience of reality, and then no guidance.
We get to see that in India a lot. We get to see that in India a lot. And people run behind miracles like anything. So,
yeah. And that's very problematic. I mean, that happened to me. I had a profound opening experience when I was about 13. And way too young to have that kind of experience. You're not developed enough at that age. And I had no one to say, okay, you had this experience. This is what you can do with it. This is how you can digest that. And so it created a crystallization of a kind of false center that I had to spend some years re-breaking so that I could
don't worry, we'll touch on that shortly.
Yeah, so that I could actually get back to step one and start over again and build it correctly.
So you got thrown into the deep end of the pool without quite knowing how to swim.
Yeah, there was nobody there to go, oh, you're floundering here. Let me grab you and throw you in again. Which was unfortunate. I mean, I could have gone in weird directions because of that. Probably did go in weird directions in some ways, but fortunately nothing that was massively damaging like some of these guys, because I was also too young.
Too young to really do that much damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
This week, actually, I happened to meet some other guru where he called me to meet him. And I mean, he would manifest money. He would manifest money in any currency you want. And then he manifested some sweets and, gave everyone as prasad. So I was just a little wondering about this.
Yeah. I remember one very famous Indian guru who did things like that. And I looked at his followers and they were all stunted. Every single one of them, not one of them was making any kind of progress at all. All they were doing is worshiping this guy.
That's what happened.
Yeah. And that's so dangerous, because not only is his own development stunted from that, because you can manifest sweets, you can manifest money. So what? I mean, the only thing that being able to manifest money would get me is a cup of coffee at Starbucks and bad karma. Because there is karma involved in that. You don't. There was a famous American writer, Robert Heinlein, who coined the phrase, "There's no such thing as a free lunch." And that goes for situations like this. And the amount of inertia that is created by people who can do this and don't know any better is devastating to the groups that form around them. And we've seen that over and over and over again. And it's hard on everybody. And the person that is usually hardest on is the leader who had the experience, because they are so crystallized into this false I, into this false center, that they will probably never get out of it.
And they're enabled so that they don't have to.
Yeah. But even if, like Keith Raniere is a good example of this. This is the Nexium guy who's now sitting in prison for 111 years. There is no way that even being in the monastery of a federal prison, he is going to be able to use that experience to reconstruct his ego in such a way that he frees himself from these false images that he created of himself. He will need to reinforce those images over and over and over again. And if he were to stop doing that, it would probably kill him at this point. It'll kill him anyway, but such is life. So that becomes a cautionary tale for everybody on the path. Be careful, first of all, who you get involved with, because there's a lot of these folks out there.
Yeah.
But even more importantly, be careful of yourself. Nobody can fool you like you. And this is to form the false center is fooling yourself.
Yeah. So we have a couple comments from
Yes.
Anna, who says, "Okay, I wanted to thank you for the clarity of description of Gurdjieff's stages for development and evolution." And Anna is also keen to have further information about exercises that will support this.
Yeah.
And continues, "I feel most people on the path to evolving have had these moments of opening at a young age. I did also as a teenager, and it took me on a wild journey for 20 years until I found the Gurdjieff work to explain things and bring about an opportunity of real soul growth.
Yeah, and that's often what happens. You have an awakening experience and no context to put it in. And Rajan, thank you for coming.
Thank
It
you,
was
as
so good to
always.
see you again, and hopefully we will see you again soon.
Yes, take
We
care.
will next week. Thank you, Mushtaq. And we can also, if you could talk a little bit about the observation of muscles, because muscles are a part of the moving soul.
Yes, yeah, and we will retouch on that. We talked about that a lot this morning.
You did, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So where was I?
Talking about, in response to Anna's sharing
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the experience of.
Yeah, it is really, really useful to have somebody in your life who can go, you're being an idiot. That's Gurdjieff. That was the first thing that he did with his students, is to give them that message. You're an idiot. You're asleep. You're a machine, and you don't know it. And the fact that you don't know it is keeping you asleep.
That's gonna piss some people off, but that's
Yeah.
done the right way, meaning done for the other person's benefit and not just to, show off your, I don't know, your spiritual guru prowess bullshit, whatever.
Yeah.
Then,
If it's done in the right way, it
yeah.
works. Yeah. If it's done in the wrong way, it's just designed to keep you beaten down. But the right way doesn't beat you down.
Right.
I was lucky that I had somebody to say, the very act of trying to get back to that state that you once experienced and are walking around with the memory of is keeping you from that experience. You have to stop that. That was the wake up for me, because, I was 13. I was stupid. I didn't know nothing. And I kept thinking, I want that. I want to get back to that.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. And that will keep you trapped forever if you don't have some way to break out of it. And that message was delivered at exactly the right time and in exactly the right way to make me go, what?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Well, good.
And then it took a little bit longer to work that whole bit out. But
yeah, I mean, that's what happens, right? You receive the information, you don't necessarily know what to do with it yet, but it seeps into the rest of your doings and it works out. God willing.
yeah, God willing.
Yes. Anna says, the work is not for the faint-hearted.
No.
That's why, yes, I agree. That's why so few want to do the work and wake up. It's too late when you're on your deathbed. Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's a crash course in kind of resigning to what's in front of you, and you don't get any do-overs. And some people don't even, they can't even manage that on their deathbed. So anyone who is sitting here right now, you're off to a running start. So take advantage.
Yeah. And hold the idea that you don't have all the time in the world.
Yeah. Yes. Anna adds, it's such an incredible gift, and I think we can all agree on that. I mean, this is why this is something that's pretty frequently on my mind, is that when we embrace the reality of death instead of running from it, like that guy,
Yeah.
rebirthing guy who wants to live forever, then we have an understanding in a way that does not control us, that time is limited and that we only have available to us an unknown amount of time, most likely. but we can still take advantage of whatever time that is to the best of our ability, to its fullest within our capacity. And that is certainly better than just trying to fight it all the way down.
Yeah, we watched a Disney series.
Yes.
Yes.
I was wondering if we should bring this up
Yeah,
or not,
we'll bring
but
that
I
up
think we have
because
time.
yeah, people will perhaps get something out of it. It's by it's called Limitless, and it is Chris Helmsworth who plays Thor in the Disney movies.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth is featured in this. It's his journey through several layers of kind of coming to terms with the limitations of being a
Yeah,
human
it starts
being.
out, you're going to get old and your body is going to start failing. How do you prevent that for as long as possible? And it goes through like 5 episodes of various things that he does to confront his fears and develop himself and do all of this. And then it gets to the last episode, which is him getting to confront death. And I'm not going to tell you anything about
We
it
really
because
should
it's
not spoil
no,
it. I mean, it's so full of good stuff.
yeah. But it will remind everybody you're going to die. You don't have any time. It could sneak up on you at any moment. A meteor could strike your house as we're talking. Probably won't, but it could. I notice a couple of people are looking around nervously.
And how do we hold space for that in a healthy way? I mean, that's
Yeah.
the work that we're doing, right? All
Yep.
of these things that we are doing are going to equip us to face death in a healthier way. And that's a beautiful thing. So I guess that's kind of our, our plug to go watch that and see what you get out of it.
Yeah.
And enjoy.
Yep. So that's basically what we have for you.
Yep, that's all I got.
Yep. And we will touch on more exercises for this as we go along. And like I said, if people want specific things, contact us on the forum, on by
Facebook
private
forum,
message,
yeah.
by email, whatever you got, and we'll see if we can give you a decent suggestion.
And all of those links are in the description below, YouTube, yada yada.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. I guess we can go on Brady Bunch mode. Does anyone have any last questions or thoughts? Nope.
Nope. Good.
Nope. Good.
In that case, we'll see you all next week.
Bye. Take good
Bye.
care, and we will see you next week.